What is happening, you Titans fans? Let's talk about coaches. Titans decided to do something a little crazy and get rid of our head coach. Whether you agree with it or disagree with it, that doesn't matter because it's already been done. And we need to dive in on exactly what we think Titans should and should not do. Music's playing, and then back. Welcome back, as I said earlier. We're about to get this discussion underway. Josiah, welcome in. Thanks for joining.
My pleasure. Always a pleasure doing business with you.
Right. So, we're going to... Here's how I'm going to do it. You can talk about these candidates any way you want to. And I'll be honest, I understand why Vrabel was fired, but I'm still a little salty that he was. Because I think this was the best head coach we probably had as the Tennessee Titans.
I would agree. I think it would be him. And I know some people's going to laugh at me when I say this. It's going to be either him or Jeff Fisher in his early days. Back when Jeff Fisher was first our coach, his style fit the NFL. And then things changed, and Jeff Fisher never did change. But you could definitely make an argument that Mike Vrabel was our best coach. Again, I think if Mike Vrabel went to the Super Bowl, you might have had a stronger argument with that because he did take us even to a Super Bowl. But still, yeah, if you want to say he's the best coach we've had, you can say that. I think firing him was a mistake if we don't get the right guy. I think this is the next couple, week or however long this will take, this process is very important for this franchise for the next, 5 or so years.
I agree. So here's how I'm doing this. I'm not just saying if I like this guy or don't like this guy. The way I'm going to do it is we're going to talk about each person that we've either interviewed or requested an interview with or any of that, and I'm going to say whether I think they are worse than Vrabel, potentially, because technically a lot of these people are first-time head coaches. So I'll be like, worse than Vrabel, potentially better than Vrabel, or around the same. Like, that's how I'm going to do the list, okay? So option number one that we went after is we did a virtual interview. Well, they're all virtual. They can't be in person yet. Apparently it's like January 22nd, I think, is when they can start doing in-person interviews. But the first one was the interim. That's almost useless to talk about this person because he's, in principle, agreed to be the head coach for the Raiders. But we did a virtual interview with Antonio Pierce of the Las Vegas Raiders. To me, this was one of the bottom three, if not the very last/worst option, in my humble opinion, that we could have gone after for head coach.
I agree. Listen, I think, he did well in the games that he coached for Las Vegas, and he coached for a good bit, so it wasn't just like 2 or 3 games. He coached for a while. The team loves him, so that's good. But he doesn't add anything new. He doesn't add anything that Mike Vrabel couldn't do. He was basically the same guy as Mike Vrabel when it comes to coaching style. I think he's someone who's going to teach toughness, discipline, that kind of coach. But he's not going to be someone that's going to out-scheme you. So I'm like, if he's going to get him, might as well stick with Vrabel. So he was somebody that I did not want.
I mean, yeah, I completely agree. And not just that, but like he went straight from being a linebackers coach to interim head coach for a few games to then getting a head coaching gig to fill the shoes of someone like Vrabel, who, love him or hate him, Vrabel's one of the most respected coaches in the league.
Yeah, I agree, but hey, listen, the team loves him, and that's a good thing. People's always said that even people that played with him knew that he was going to be a head coach someday. So apparently, he has that charisma about him. He has that personality. So I'm not, shocked that happened, but I'm just kind of glad it didn't happen with us.
Yeah, well, that's a easy for me as a worse than Mike Vrabel. Now, technically, these are all hypotheticals because besides, I might be wrong in saying this. Nope, not wrong. Dan Quinn's the only person on this list who's actually been a head coach. So technically, by saying worse than Vrabel, better than Vrabel, the same as Vrabel,
It's just guessing.
they're all just guesses. But safe guesses, educated guesses, even. All right. So for me, I say worse than Vrabel. All right. Option number 2. And this guy's been picking up a lot of steam lately because we've already requested a second interview. We've already done a first one. Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan. These names get confused. We have Brian Callahan and Brian Johnson, and we have Brian Johnson and Ben Johnson. So all these names just kind of blend together. Plain names, let's put it that way. Anyways, my personal opinion on him is he's on the level of Vrabel. Now, a lot of these I'm speaking best case scenario because it's very possible none of these people end up being what Vrabel is, sadly. But given benefit of the doubt, I'm going to put him on the same level. The reasons I like him is Zach Taylor always talks glowingly of him. He's an offensive mind. Now, this one, I don't know if this is a pro or a con, but he's been their coordinator for 5 years.
How long has Zach Taylor been there?
Let me take a little looky. Little quick Google search will tell me all I need to know about that one. See, Zach Taylor, he's a football coach. Let's go to his Wikipedia. He's only 40. Let's see. He has been their head coach since 2019. So it's 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23. So that's 5 years. So, yeah, he's been his offensive coordinator all 5 of those years. And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. Is it good that, he's obviously been doing at least a decent job to stay around, not get fired? But 5 years and you never got poached?
Well, I think the one thing is Zach Taylor calls the plays. And when you're an offensive coordinator, or as a coordinator in general, and you don't call plays, that kind of makes it not as what's the word I'm looking for? It's not as sought after, when you don't call plays. So because that's gonna be a thing that we don't know about him. If we do get him, is he a good play caller or not? But I would say, under him, and you can also say it's Zach Taylor, but they've had good offenses. So maybe he's been in the building for 5 years. He saw how, to scheme things, how to coach things. So I would be okay if we got him, but I'm not gonna say he's on the right side of the ball. I like that he's offense, but he is a big question mark because he didn't call plays. So I would say he's about even with Vrabel.
That's where I have him as well. I'm saying, and sadly, yeah, probably best case scenario. He's even with Vrabel in my mind. Well, I guess that's technically not true if it's best case scenario. Because best case scenario, he calls plays for the first time, does a heck of a job, and then suddenly, no matter what coordinator we have, we still have a offense that stays basically the same. And
that's the ideal situation for sure.
It is. I'm torn. I don't like the fact that he's never called plays. But at the same time, Matt LaFleur never called plays until we brought him over and was our play caller for just one season, and then he was head coach.
Granted, he wasn't great with us. But,
I agree. He wasn't great with us either, but finding success as a
head coach
NFL head coach because he's taken this Packers team, who I really did not think would be good. Either Jordan Love's been that good and it's been a sin that he's just been sitting on the bench this long, or Matt LaFleur's getting the best out of him. Regardless, who cares about them right now? So yeah, Brian Callahan. I know a lot of people are really, really getting into him right now. I'm going to keep him on par with Vrabes, in my humble opinion. It might be one of those situations where he's on par with Vrabes. Vrabes is the better coach, but Brian Callahan being an offensive-minded coach is going to give him a little nudge. All right. So option number 3, Mike MacDonald. He is the young defensive coordinator for the Ravens, who's been a, very good head, our defensive coordinator this year. He's probably going to be the hardest one on this list for me to rank because I'm all out on defensive-minded head coaches because we discussed this in our last podcast in depth that if we wanted a defensive coach, we should have stuck with Vrabel because he's probably top 3 defensive coach in the league before getting fired. But this guy is young, very young. He's 36 ish, somewhere in there, 35. He's very young. And that defense is playing lights out. I think there's like 11 games they held their opponent to 20 points or less, which is insane.
Yeah,
But
I'm.
he's young, very, very young, very young. That doesn't mean he's ready or even good at being a head coach. So a part of me wants to say I'll keep him on par with Vrabel, but I also feel like best case scenario, he's on par with Vrabel. So in the end, I would have stuck with Vrabel over Mike McDonald.
Yeah, I would say he's confusing to me because I agree with you, and we both talked about this. That I think if we get a defensive coach, we might as well just stuck with Vrabel. But he's done well. He's done really well with the Baltimore Ravens. So he's almost an attractive uh, coach in that sense because I'm like he does his side of the ball well, but he's gonna bring basically the same attitude as Vrabel, um, the same philosophy and mindset part as Vrabel, but he does do it well. So if we're going to get a defense coach, it probably would be him who I'd be interested in. Um, but yeah, I would say about the same as Vrabel. Um, yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next. Option number 4. Bobby Schlowick. He was one of the two guys that I shouted out in my last video that that this is one of the few people. Like I said, you can't truly put anybody above Vrabel, but just because besides Dan Quinn, none of them's actually done it. But I would put him above Vrabel because he is a play caller. Play caller. Who knows? You might say some of CJ Stroud's success comes from this guy making an offense to suit CJ Stroud's abilities. So Bobby Slowick is, I'm just going to tell you, one of two people that I would say for sure over Vrabel. But even like I said earlier, it's a best case scenario.
Nothing's for sure.
Nothing's for sure in this best case scenario if he is a really good play caller. But here's the thing: it takes more than just being a play caller. You need to be, I don't necessarily say alpha, but like you need to, when you walk in the room, people need to be like, oh, that's the head coach.
I agree. You're right. It's more than just calling plays on offense. You're completely right. Can you actually, well, because head coaching got responsibilities that coordinators don't have to worry about. Can you do that well? Um, so you're right. And none of these people besides Dan Quinn has been head coaches. So a lot of this is guessing. But yeah, I like him. I think he's good. He's done a heck of a job with CJ Stroud, and some people will say, well, maybe CJ Stroud has made him look good. I think it's a little bit of both. And one thing I do like is, their head coach is a defensive coach. So, everything they'll get out of the offense is because of him. You know what I mean? They're not getting any help out of Danico. Well, no, what's his name? Dang it, the Texas head coach.
D'Amico Ryan?
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, he's not helping with that offense. So it's all from him. And I like that. So he's very, interesting to me, and I think he's one of my top picks as well. So I'm going to say above Vrabel. Yes, yeah, exactly. Because when we find Vrabel, I'm like, there's certain people that to me, like, okay, if we get this kind of coach, I'll be happy with the change. He's one of those. He fits that bill. I'm like, okay, I think this is us moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Couple things to keep an eye with him. One, sometimes Vegas odds just know things somehow, and they do have Bobby Slowick as the most likely head coach for the Titans.
You know what would also help us? He would have some insight on the Texans, who's in our division.
He would have insight on Texans. Also, another reason why we're linked to him, and this might be why the odds are best for him to end up in Tennessee, is he's 1 year with the Texans, but his 5 years before that, he was with the 49ers.
Oh, I remember that, yes.
Yeah, and good old Ran Carthon.
You got to know him pretty well.
Yeah. Like, technically, they left 49ers the same year. Because last year was Bobby Slowick's first year with the Texans, and it was Ran Carthon's first year with the Titans. So, but at least if that's the most likely odds, he's my number 2 choice. But at least if he's the most likely odds, I'd feel pretty lucky if out of 11 people we get the one I'm second most excited about. Agreed.
Yep.
So far we're almost lockstep. I put Mike McDonald below Vrabes. You put him with Vrabes. Besides that, we've been the same. All right, this is gonna be a quick conversation. You ready?
Yep, and I know he's about to go. And
the angry-looking toe. Mike Kafka.
No.
Every single picture you see of him, he's just making a gross face. Now, I know it has nothing to do with his coaching, but every single picture, you Google Mike Kafka, every single picture, like every single picture, I'm like, why are you so angry all the time?
Yeah, I was as you talk about his face, I'll say this. He's the offensive coordinator to a bad offense. So no, thank you. End of story.
I mean, yeah, I agree. I agree. And people said, "Oh, but yeah, he did some great things the previous year." You say Danny Dimes is terrible, but then they actually, they weren't that bad last year. And by last year, I mean 2022. But to me, that was just Saquon Barkley decided to go off.
Yeah, and also I would say also doesn't call plays.
Yeah, but that's
That's
a
Daboll.
Brian Dayball
Yeah.
thing. Because yeah,
So
I think that Brian
there's
Dayball's the mastermind
nothing
behind that
to
one.
me about him is. I mean, I guess he's on the right side of the ball, but he's about as bad as it
That's it.
gets when it comes to the offensive coach.
I agree. I agree. So he's probably number 3 on the bottom.
Yeah, same. Yeah,
Definitely the lowest offense.
to answer it, yeah, he's below Vrabel.
Yeah, below variable. Can you imagine if you're living your life and the next thing you know, you get a notification from the NFL app that says, breaking, Tennessee Titans named Mike Kafka as next head coach. You'd be like, what?
Yeah, that's disappointing. That would be awful.
What? We fire Vrabel for an angry toe with eyeballs? That's awful. But
Okay.
anyways, obviously he's below Michael Vrabel. All right, next option. This one's probably gonna be pretty quick as well. Defensive coordinator Dan Quinn for the Falcons. He is not the Falcons. He was head coach of the Falcons. He's D coordinator for the Cowboys now. I don't want to have anything to do with that. I don't want retreads. I don't want retreads in any way, shape, or form.
I'll say, I think he's an excellent defensive coordinator. He was good in Seattle. He's good in Cowboys. I think some people it's just meant to be a coordinator. No shame
Vic
in that.
Fangio. Vic Fangio was a top
Exactly. He's a
defensive
great
coordinator. Comes in with the Broncos and was just awful as a head coach. And then he
Yeah,
went back to being defensive coordinator. And he's back to being
yes,
good.
and I'll say he's a great defensive coordinator, and but I don't think I really want him as a head coach at all. Wrong side of the ball. He granted did take a team to the Super Bowl. Kudos to that. But still, I just think, like you said, I don't want to rehire somebody that's been a head coach and fired. Um, so yeah, I'm just a no though. And from the reports I heard, nothing for sure, but that he wants to go back to Dallas. Don't know why, but that's what he wants. So I don't think we have to worry about him. But I'm gonna say below Vrabel.
Well, I'm sure if he were to get a head coach where they say, all right, the job's yours if you'll take it, I'm sure he would take it. Otherwise, if he's not getting a head coach gig, he's perfectly content
Well, the
staying.
thing is though, those some teams I would be like, nope. Like if the Panthers wanted me, I would say absolutely not. Their owner is just ridiculous.
I mean, yeah, I agree. I saw some people discussing saying how Vrabel should go to the Panthers. I'm like, do you think Mr. David Tepper and Mike Vrabel would get along at all?
Did you know he's almost had the same amount of head coaches as years he's been there? That's
Yeah.
just ridiculous. You're not going to win. You're
Well,
not going to
remember,
make a playoff.
Frank
like
Reich,
that.
he gave Frank Reich 7 games. 7 games. I thought he was one of the most overrated head coaches because there for a while everyone just acted like he was top 5.
I like him, but
I like him,
disagree.
but they act like he's top 5 elite. Firing him after 7 games with that roster?
Yeah, he's a bad owner.
Horrible, horrible. Plus, apparently, Frank Reich really wanted C.J. Stroud, and David Tepper actually had to veto him and be like, nope, we're going after Bryce Young instead. So it looks like that was a bad move. Sounds like he should fire himself. And then, of course, he had the situation where he got mad at the one fan and threw, I don't remember if it was water or alcohol, whatever he was drinking, but spilled the drink on him on purpose and slammed the cup down and walked out. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, he's not a good owner.
So I thought
But
Jim
anyway,
Irsay was crazy. But anyways.
So Dan Quinn is a no for both of us.
Yeah,
and
below Vrabes, in my humble opinion. Next, Panthers offensive coordinator Thomas Brown. Thomas Brown.
I'm a no for that.
No, personally, there's a lot of people I've heard make a convincing case how he was offensive coordinator and then suddenly Frank Reich and the quarterback's coach were fired 7 games into the season, and then suddenly, so he has everything's just changing around him. But when you have the number 32 ranked offense, it's just
No.
hard. And I know there's not a lot of talent on that team, but when you have the number 32 ranked offense, it's just hard to be like, oh, that's the offensive guru that I want, with my
Yeah.
quarterback, young quarterback Will Levis.
Yep. I'm a no to that. I think he's less than Vrabel. Yeah, there's nothing that makes me want a 32nd ranked offensive coordinator. No, thank you.
Yeah, I'll just have to pass on that one. I would say below Vrabes.
Yes.
All right, moving on. Eagles offensive coordinator Brian Johnson. I don't know about him either.
Yeah. I think he's on the right side of the ball,
He is.
but the Eagles, to me, they're too talented. Like, let me tell you, Mr. Johnson, the Titans do not have AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts, Swift, Jason Kelsey, uh, Lane Johnson. Um, we don't have those people, and you couldn't hardly do anything with the offense. Okay, what do you expect to do with all offense? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Because he
agree.
had so much talent on that Eagles offense, and they got worse instead of better. That is to me a red flag.
Not to mention the fact that, as far as I understand, Nick Sirianni runs that offense.
Well, he did give up play calling last year. He actually midway through last year he gave it to the Colts coach. What is his name? Steichen?
Shane Steichen.
Yeah, he started calling plays for the Eagles last year, and Nick Sirianni gave that up. So I think Nick Sirianni did not call plays this year either.
But that would be another reason not to go after Brian Johnson, because
Yeah,
the
exactly.
offense
No,
took
I
a
agree.
huge step back this year for seemingly no reason.
I agree.
So just too many things are stacked against him. I mean, he's one of those kind of situations, and me being me, if we were to get him, same with Thomas Brown with the Panthers, if we were to get one of them, I would try my darndest to be excited to be like, you know what? It's an offensive head coach. That's been our number one complaint with Vrabel for the 6 years that he spent with the Titans. So let's try to be positive and give him a chance. Just give him a chance. But I don't want him.
I would be like that with Brian Johnson. I would not be that with Thomas Brown. If we get Thomas Brown, I'll be pretty upset. But with Brian Johnson, I mean, they was good enough where I wouldn't just like throw my phone through the window. But again, he had so much talent to Philadelphia that he will not have in Tennessee, and so the fact that you couldn't have a better offense than what they had kind of makes me think that you're not going to succeed with all skilled players.
Yeah. Now, this is just a me thing. Makes nothing, no sense, no bearing. But these are some plain names.
Really, is that what you're thinking about?
Listen to this: Mike McDonald, Thomas Brown, Brian Johnson, Ben Johnson. Like, I feel like if you were to go to Facebook and type in Ben Johnson, there would be like 150 Ben Johnsons pop up. You know what I mean? At least
People watch-
Vrabel was
the
Vrabel was a unique last name. Obviously, I'm just being stupid.
So the next person is the Lions defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn.
Yeah, I'm gonna say you probably have the exact same article pulled up I do because
I
we're
do.
going the exact same order.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aaron Glenn.
Oh, is that it? I'm blind. Aaron Glenn. Sorry.
Yeah, I am all out on Aaron Glenn.
Me too.
Defensive head coach with a horrible defense with the Lions,
Yep.
and not just that. And this is maybe sounds ageist, but when you're in your 50s and you've never gotten a head coaching shot, there's probably a reason. In my humble opinion, especially in today's NFL. Back in the day, you could be 60 years old getting your first shot. But like in today's NFL, everybody's going after the next Sean McVay where you're getting them 32 years old, So the fact that if you're 50-something years old and you've never gotten a head coaching gig, to me that just says something.
Yeah, I agree. But the Lions are a good team, but it's not because of the defense. I mean, the defense is what makes them, I don't think, going to be quite a Super Bowl team because of the defense. So what will make you want to get a defensive coordinator that has a bad defense? It's like getting what's his name? It's like getting Thomas Brown. He's an offensive coordinator with a bad offense. Why would you want him? Why would you want him with a bad defense? So
now the one rebuttal I've heard against that was Mike Vrabel's defense was awful the one year he was a defensive coordinator for the Texans.
And I would give you that. And
Yeah.
actually, but I remember that's one of my complaints when we got him. I'm like, why
Like,
did we want this guy?
oh, we have a defensive coordinator with a bad defense as our
Yeah.
head coach. Cool. But
I mean, and that is true what you said, but be it as it may, still don't want him.
no, 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 no. He's
Which he's a below Vrabel. I think I said
below Vrabel.
I
Yeah,
did answer that to go back real quick with Brian Johnson. I say it's below Vrabel.
yeah, below Vrabel. So far, we still agreed on everything besides Mike McDonald. You said on par with Vrabel, which I was on the fence because he could be on par. If he's a
Yeah,
top defensive head coach, then he'll be right there with the Braves.
yeah.
Next on the list, ex Stanford head coach David Shaw. I don't know what we're doing here.
Yeah, that's dumb.
To me, that was just like they're saying about like they want to cast their net wide.
Yeah, that's what that was.
I'm like, that's just like you were trying to catch a whole bunch of fish, and then suddenly this little crab just like crawled in there, and you just happened to get him
Shaw.
too. You know, it's something.
But I say he's done well in college football, but in I think I can't remember what years it was. He was a head coach for 2 years, I think, and he did not do well in the NFL. And the only college coach I'd be interested in is Jim Harbaugh, but for some reason we don't want him. I'm like, stay away from college coaches. I don't want him. Do you know what side of the ball he's on?
I think he's offensive, if I remember correctly.
That's good, I guess. But I still no. I don't
Yeah, honestly, the
NFL.
whole college to NFL thing hasn't been working lately. Like they tried it with Matt Rule in Carolina. They tried it with Cliff Kingsbury, which it worked very briefly when they
Speaking
had.
of which, I saw that he's getting interviewed by Chicago.
Yeah, I seen that for a head coach or was it OC?
It was head coach.
Okay, gotcha.
No, that can't be true because
No,
they
but-
already committed to the. So it had to be OC.
Yeah, I was like that. Remember,
Well,
that's what
honestly,
I thought was weird.
I wouldn't mind him as an OC, to be honest.
I agree because I remember I thought that was weird because I'm thinking this guy's going to be either a head coach in college or then he goes to the NFL, so he's only going to ever want another head coaching gig in the college or the NFL. He's not going to want to take a step down, seemingly to OC. But then I saw him interviewing for OC. I'm like, oh, interesting. I wish we would have just done that and got him last year instead of Tim Kelly.
Yep.
Actually, would have been a really good idea because he was technically the play caller for the Cardinals with D-Hop, so then bring him as our OC. He already knows how to use D-Hop, which this is a whole nother video in of itself. I have a bad feeling D-Hop's going to win out because apparently there's a lot fine print in the contract that it has an out after just 1 year. It's a 2-year deal, but it has an out after 1 year where like if they can mutually agree, like this can be it. Because his reasons for joining the Titans was he wanted to play with Derrick Henry and he has his Vrabel connections. Guess what? Probably not going to have either of those.
Yeah. I would say
Which opens a huge hole.
We'll talk about that later. But I'll say if he leaves, our receiving core is terrible.
Truly
Awful. Like that's not fair for Will Levis.
No, it's not. Actually, let me throw one more stat out there, and then we'll move on with this list because we only got one more name on it. If we take out D-Hop from last year, we wouldn't have had a single wide receiver break 500.
That's ridiculous. And that's 2 years in a row we've been this sorry at receiver. The problem is we're so bad offensive line and receiver. Like you want to fix both, but I don't know if you can fix both this offseason.
Anyways, I knew I shouldn't have opened that can of worms. I think our number 2 wide receiver was Chris Moore, 30-year-old Chris Moore. But anyways, which means our 2 top wide receivers in yards is a 30-year-old, a 31-year-old, and we have a 35-year-old starting quarterback and a 30-year-old running back that turned 30 during the season. We were just too old, I think, is our problem.
Yeah.
Anywho, actually, we had a lot of problems. But anyways, last name on the list who just finished a virtual interview with us was Ben Johnson, who's kind of been my guy the whole time and is the only other guy besides Bobby Slowick that I will put in my above Vrabel category.
I agree.
Because like even Bobby Slowick, it's one of those situations where you're like, well, is it C.J. Stroud or is it Bobby Slowick? Because this is both of their first years, a rookie play caller and a rookie quarterback. But Ben Johnson's been there for a hot minute, and it seems like he's a smart dude. He's one of those situations where he's young but not too young. Because when there's like people who's like 34, 35, you're like, but he's like 38, I think. I don't know. I like the Lions offense because I like what they're able to do with Jared Goff. I like what he does with all the running backs, whether he's going David Montgomery, whether they're going Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, of course, they do have a lot of weapons as well with Amon-Ra St. Brown. They got Jamison Williams, which he's been kind of a bust Because he was supposed to be the best wide receiver in that draft last year, and then he tore his ACL. Yeah, he tore his ACL late, so he missed most of the season. But then when he finally did come back, he didn't do much. And then this year he hasn't done much, so he might be a little bit of a bushed. But anyways, I digress. Ben Johnson is my number one pick.
Ben Johnson is above Vrabel to me. If we got him, he'd be somebody I'm like, okay, I'm okay with this hire. He's on the right side of the ball. He's done well. He's made Jared Goff look pretty good. He's had some decent offenses under him. I like what he's done. There's not too many red flags that I could think of. So any red flags that you could say, that's one problem. I can't think of one really.
No.
Yeah, so I think it works well. Ben Johnson is my number 1 or 2 between him and Slowick. I feel like if we get him, Texans, and that might be my top 2, and then number 3 is a good bit down from them too. You know what I mean? So that is what I want. Make that work. Oh, that's what I knew. There was something I was going to say, and I kept forgetting. The problem though is I think Ben Johnson is the most sought out of all the coaches.
Yeah, he might be a bidding war.
Yes, and that's the problem. Titans do not pay money for the coaches, especially the first contract. Like they gave Vrabel an extension, and then
finally. Yeah, which is why I really hope some of these head coaching vacancies start getting filled. Like there's been talk with Vrabel. Vrabel actually interviewed with the Chargers, so I would love to see Vrabel just go to the Chargers real quick. I would love to see Antonio Pierce officially sign with the Las Vegas Raiders. Bill Belichick has had 2 interviews with the Falcons, so if the Falcons go ahead and scoop him up. People keep doing all this stuff where it gets to where there's down to like 3 teams. So that way, instead of Ben Johnson being like, okay, which of these 9 teams do I want to go to? If it's like, oh, what are these 3 teams I want to go to? That makes me feel a whole lot better. But yeah, and this is why I didn't like the firing of Mike Vrabel. Because by mine, now yours is one off from what I had, but according to my calculations, like I just proved myself to agree with myself. But of all these, how many was that? 10, 11? 11, yeah. So out of these 11 people, I think 2 could be better, 1 on par, and then 8 probably not going to be as good as Vrabel.
Yeah.
So that's why I said, sometimes you take risks. Alex Smith was playing his best football with the Chiefs. A lot of people probably thought they were stupid for trading up to get Mahomes and then making him a backup. But they went out on a limb, took a big fat risk, and I can promise you they are very happy with their decisions. So you never know. It might be like 3 years from now, Ben Johnson's just a genius of a head coach, brilliant play caller, and be like, do you remember when I was actually kind of mad because we fired Vrabel? I would love to be able to say that one day. But Vrabel did have 6 years of proven just good coaching. So, So yeah, I mean, I guess that's basically it.
Yep, I agree with what you said. Like, there's a couple candidates better than Vrabel, but not many. So it's easy that we could go down from here. You know what I mean? So hopefully Carthon makes the right choice here. I'm not sure how much trust I have in him because he's so new. We've had 1 year with him. So well, hopefully he does well. I hope he does. Please don't bring in some defensive coordinator like the Lions or somebody. Oh, I'd be so upset. I would be so upset. I would have zero confidence that this team would be anything remotely decent in the next 5 years.
Sometimes, I remember Delaney got famous for saying this, but sometimes good players have to overcome bad coaching.
Yeah.
Which is funny that he said that. But anyways, with all the cap space we have, and if Fran has a good draft, we could be competitive with a bad coach. But why do you want to be in a situation where you have to overcome bad coaching?
That's the thing is you can overcome maybe to get a wild card spot, but you're not going to overcome to win a Super Bowl.
I know. I agree. And
that's what it's all about, to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, but at this point, I'd like to just get back to the playoffs.
That's sad that we're behind like this because I was thinking that, like, I'm not even content with playoffs. We're a Super Bowl or bust now. That's what I was thinking when we were making the playoffs. And then we all back to being a crappy team, just saying, oh, I just want to make the wild card. That's all I care about. I'm like, how did we take these steps back?
I was thinking about that when we got officially eliminated last year. I guess this year it's still the 2023 season. But I remember when we officially got eliminated thinking, man, I can remember Josiah used to say, I would say it's nice being a team that just goes to the playoffs every year. It's just great. Like, we're just automatic. We just go. It's just what we do. And you're being like, yeah, but I want more. I don't want to just go to the playoffs. And now suddenly I'm right there where I'm like, oh, I just want to be a 9-8. If we could just be 9-8 and just slide in, and then once you get to the playoffs, there's a chance. Now suddenly I'd love to be back in those days.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. I guess that's all I have. Do you have anything else you want to add to the video?
No, that's all. Titans, don't mess this up. Do the right thing. Don't disappoint us fans like you like to do, and tighten up.
Tighten up. And we'll see y'all in the next video. Don't know what it's about. Don't know exactly when you'll get it, but we will be back. So peace out and all that.